a second, everybody. There we go. I have to reset up my buttons because I redid the overlay stuff. And anyway, here we are with, oh my goodness, Transporter Room 3. Again, coming back talking Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episodes 3 and 4. I am Natalie, also known as Dark Aardvark. You're on my Twitch channel. The best place to keep up with me is my Twitter at dark_Aardvark. And I got into Trek because I watched a cartoon. I watched the new cartoon, Lower Decks, Season 1, and realized I liked the show, and then realized there's a lot of jokes I wasn't getting and wanted to get into them. So I started. I put it to the Twitterverse, and they decided The Next Generation, and I think they've done a good job so far. But I obviously don't know enough to fully critique that. But I am joined by Hope and Robin. And I need to just sit down and write a freaking intro to the show sometime. But let's go to Hope and a little bit about yourself, if you would like.
Yeah, I'm Hope Tracy. You can find me at HopeTracy71 on Twitter. Also here on Tuesdays, obviously, and Monday I'm on Lady Sido's channel for a D&D 5e adventure where I play a why not wild magic sorcerer. And I got into Star Trek in the usual way, sitting on the couch with my mother and 4 siblings, and then later on hanging out with my best friend in high school when we went to our Star Trek fan club for one meeting. I read a lot of the Spock novels. We don't have to talk about that. And and then lately I've just been, there's a lot of memes around, and I thought it'd be nice to catch up with these fine folks.
There we go. And Robin, same deal. A little bit about yourself, if you would like.
Yeah, my name is Robin. You can find me on Twitter at KaikaC. It's kind of the same deal as Hope. Watched episodes with my parents growing up, but then watched a whole rewatch of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like about a year and a half ago with my roommate, and was very entertained when Natalie started watching them all for the first time. And so when she asked me if I wanted to stream this, I was like, I sure do. And so now everybody gets to hear my boring thoughts about these things, which is how I like it.
There you go. A little harsh on yourself, but that's what my spaces are all about. Self-deprecation.
Oh yes,
I think my opinions are fantastic. I don't.
Oh, thank you.
You can also find me. Sorry, I should mention this. On Wednesday nights and Thursday nights and Saturday afternoons on Milady Saito's channel. Wednesday nights I play an erstwhile ranger cleric character. Thursday nights I play in a campaign run by Anarchy Tony, where we are trying to figure out why our whole entire world got flooded. And then on Saturday, I play a shadow elf, who is having some real problems in her love life right now. So there you go.
I do play on the Saturday game too. I play Queen Valerie, who's not a queen of anywhere she's at now, because she's usually on the Wednesday night show. But
now
yeah,
she's just chained to a certain dragonborn.
Indeed. What can you do?
Metaphysically, at least.
Yeah, metaphysically, thank goodness. For both of them, that would drive them both nuts.
Well, I have a feeling they're still going to get.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Saturday problems.
That's Saturday problems.
Saturday problems. Tonight we're talking Star Trek: The Next Generation. We're gonna start off with Celia. I'm the queen of segues. I tell you what. But we're discussing Season 3, Episode 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. This one is entitled The Survivors, which we come to find out at the end of the episode is actually a misnomer.
It is. I actually really enjoyed watching Natalie's thread on this because this episode, it was fun to see her get faked out a few times.
Yeah. This one was very good at fake.
then-
I was
good-
faked out too. I just
Yeah.
didn't talk about it on Twitter.
Well, that's why we all have to thank Natalie for being willing to be so.
Only the cat saw it.
I may not be the village stooge, but I may not be the only village stooge, but I'm the only one that puts it on Twitter. I get you.
I had forgotten that this was this episode. I when we got to the end, I remember the end of this episode very well, but I did not remember when Natalie was first talking about it that was this episode for some reason, or the title.
Well, I tend to pick up threads that have nothing to do with anything early in episodes, so that makes sense that you'd be thrown off. We start right off in this one with some very serious Captain Picard voiceover. But then we cut to, from the exterior, to him just like, I'm sure it was to hit marks at the right time, but like oddly slowly walking onto the bridge. I mean, you know, they have space travel. It's not like him rushing to the captain's chair is going to get them there any sooner, but I just thought it was funny that he has this like really determined and sort of intense VO voiceover for the captain's log, but he is just kind of sauntering onto the deck.
It is, it's funny. Like I feel like it's not true in every episode, but I feel like we've talked about this before. That like it's sometimes it's striking how long things seem to, like how much time they have, and like that there isn't more running around.
Yeah, for sure, and that comes up particularly next episode for me. Anyway, I think. What was the next episode? I can't remember. Well, it'll be revealed by the Twitter thread, I'm sure. Yeah. And we see Troy in a different uniform. I'm very sad to report that it doesn't make an appearance in episode 4, but I love the fit and flare teal dress she's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
It's super cute.
I think that comes back as a pretty.
Well, it doesn't come back. Yeah, it doesn't come back in 4.
Yeah, they just have to do a lot more of the unitard thing for a bit.
Yeah, but I feel like that one becomes more. Am I right about that? Hope that one becomes more regular.
Well, I sure hope so.
That's the one because that's usually the one I think of her in. Honestly, like.
Oh, really? So we're gonna see a lot more probably.
Like in my own, memory, since back when I could see things, that's kind of how I always pictured. That's the one I picture her in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm down for it being a more frequent thing. I was very sad when it wasn't in episode 4.
I really liked the visual of that perfect square of vegetation. That was
very good use of it. Yeah.
Weird enough to be really satisfying,
especially from like the satellite, to lack of a better word, I guess they are a satellite when the ship is a satellite when it's orbiting, but the satellite images of the ground where it's just like the nice perfect grid or square,
which is another like why question. Why is he doing the perfect grid?
Yeah,
is it
true.
the extent of his power? Apparently not.
He's got a very specific stat block, and it says. I also like that it's square. You'd think it would be more like radial if it's from somebody's. I don't know.
Well, I think with what we now know about soil biome complexity, they wouldn't make a square plot now.
Sure, those were English words that I recognized most of.
I mean, it's possible that maybe the grid was like that was the pre-existing demarcation of their land or something like that.
Yeah,
was like he like recreated basically like the land that they used to actually own or something like that.
The whole island to himself, or the whole planet to himself, but he's still respected.
Yeah. I mean, that does kind of seem in keeping with that character in some ways.
Very much so. Yeah.
That he would do that.
No, that's
Robin,
an excellent
I'm
point.
gonna need you to quit being right.
Yeah. Could be reasonable and right. We just want to dish.
Oh, wait till we get to the next episode where that I'm going to be thought of as being very wrong about a lot of things.
Okay.
Well, that'll be interesting. Well, let's get on to this one. Just because I have commented on Troy, I will say Dr. Crusher found a flat iron for this episode, which I don't know. I don't have anything as a curly haired girl. I personally don't have anything wrong with the hair she was wearing the first 2 episodes back, but you know, she looks good with the flat iron and her little cardigan. I just, you know.
Oh my, yeah. That's what memory I have of Dr. Crusher from
The cardigan?
the
Or
fussing with the
flat-
cardigan. Like
Oh,
when she was
yeah.
about to say something, she put her hands in her cardigan
Oh.
pocket
Oh,
and like
interesting.
fuss. And that's like classic Crusher to me.
Something to look
Interesting.
for in the future, yeah.
Huh.
I do appreciate here there's this tracking shot as they're going over the perfect square plot of land.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see this one coming. Usually I can see them coming, the teleporting in and out. They make sure shots are locked down. They didn't have this one. It's obvious, but I appreciate that they're trying to make like the teleporting in and out seem more organic to the world, because right now it's a bit like, here's a locked off shot where nothing is moving in the area where these people are. They are now going to teleport. Which
Oh, also,
large.
I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but one of the things I'm appreciating about season 3, and especially in these episodes, which I thought were really cozy, is that they seem to have fixed their lighting issue.
Yes,
they had.
It looks much less.
It's soft and like
Yeah.
it's actually cozy. Like you can just settle your eyes on it and watch what's going on.
Instead of absolutely everything in the scene is in sharp in focus, and yeah. No, they're definitely upping the game a little bit with that stuff and the camera movements and things.
Yeah, well, when our technology's new, nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
True. And then after the group teleports onto the lawn, we have Tether Riker, which is fun. I do love that Riker is. It's always the first officer in distress. So, well, I mean, after Yar, it's always the first officer in distress.
I just like that it was such a cartoon.
Yeah.
In some ways, like it felt very like to come up with the most ridiculous trap that I can think of.
It was very ridiculous. But I mean, that's part of the charm. And
yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
But...
I think Rashawn, I think is her name.
Yep.
Rashawn and Kevin. They're super stylish. I love his like retired Buck Rogers outfit for Kevin. And then that future shiny material stuff that Rashawn's wearing is delightful. I did get a little angry at Dr. Crusher for just a second, where she's in their house and she's scanning them, and the Rashawn, I think it is like, "What are you doing?" And Dr. Crusher's like, "Oh, sorry, just doing a physical or something." I'm like, "Yeah, just performing a medical procedure without your consent. That's all."
Yeah.
That's all you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different time.
Yeah. But you know, yeah, different time. We'll leave it at that. I also I love it when Worf meets a new person that he respects, because it's so stinking cute. Like,
I appreciate Gaul.
Yeah, I appreciate Gaul. I was like, yes. I love it so much. The terrarium was obviously important from the top, but as Robin mentioned earlier, I was, as I often am, wrong numerous ways in this episode. And that is part of the fun, I think, though.
It is part of the fun.
Speculating out loud.
Yeah, speculating out loud. Like I think my favorite part was, I think, in your thread where you wondered for half a second if Rashawn was actually like the one behind everything, and Kevin was. Yeah.
Well, she was much more authoritative.
She was. No,
like
there definitely like was a lot of reason to believe that, but
especially there's the part where he's walking away or something. He's like going upstairs or something, and she's talking to the rest of them, and she's like the very like the protective wife, like, you know, just, oh, he's a sweet old man, let's not bother him anymore, sort of thing, which is very sweet and endearing, and then also very much makes sense toward the end when you realize that, you know,
she's a puppet.
she's, well, yeah. That's not inaccurate, but I think it gives an edge of. She's a puppet, but she's also she's not a person being controlled. She's a recreation of a person.
Yeah.
Which is. So yeah, puppet. I just didn't want to give the impression that there was sinisterness to it when there wasn't. I was kind of surprised.
That music box.
Yeah, a little music. I think it's more like a little music terrarium or something, but it's very cool and cute. And I wish they would have gone into more about how why that was important. I guess because that song was what Troy's hearing. Troy has a very bad time this episode.
Yeah, she definitely does.
He was literally he was just using the music as a weapon. It was just the manifestation of his psychic block. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And they definitely got me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the song was important to him because I think it was something special. But yeah, their song I think was, but yeah. Also, we see Troy in the, when she's having her attack in the meeting.
Yeah.
It's
she goes. I love Troy. I think she goes a little bit. She goes. I mean, and part of this is editing too. I shouldn't take it all on Marina's choices, but it's a little 0 to Grey Gardens a little fast, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Again, some of that's editing, some of that's they have to tell the story in 45 minutes or whatever, but yeah, it seemed a little, I don't know, it escalated a little quickly to me, I thought. But I mean, I also totally understand. I was equating it to a migraine or a very bad headache or something, that you can't escape. I was definitely feeling bad for her. I tweeted that Worf has big ridge energy. I can't remember what it was. What it was in reference to in particular, but it's a good tweet that I stand behind. Yeah, I love that Picard. I thought it was going to be Riker, but I love that it was Picard was the one that stopped by, and checked on her.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of interesting in both of these episodes that you kind of see the way from sort of a story standpoint, the escalation, right? Riker gets sent down and then the thing doesn't get resolved, and then it's then Picard then Picard comes in.
Then Dad has to go in.
Yeah, then Dad comes in and is well, I think I have to have a talk with these two people on this planet. Get to the bottom of what's happening here.
Make sure their vineyard isn't nicer than my family's.
There we go. Yeah.
We got the alien spaceship.
Indeed, which I love. I think I was surprised that neither.
Oh, is that maybe the thing with Worf when he's I'd stake my reputation on it?
Oh yeah, yes, that was the big ridge energy comment. Yep. Exactly. I thought it was a little weird that either Data or Wesley weren't a little more intrigued by the fact that the alien ship was matching their acceleration perfectly.
Yeah.
That's or even Geordi after he if he found out, because I don't think he was on the bridge at that time. I think he was down in engineering, but
it was funny because it was the way they were calling out, it definitely seemed as the audience was supposed to pick up on that fact, and yet it was weird that nobody actually in the show picked up on it. And again, Picard maybe.
Well, yeah, it was one of the many pieces of evidence that he was building in his head, which I was also kind of a little mad at Picard on this one, because I think he has a tendency sometimes to play things a little too close to the vest with his crew. He's very lucky that his crew top to bottom seems to respect his decisions that much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, especially from like from people who watch the show but also play a lot of TTRPGs, um, where it is kind of like one of those things that you see like in some ways the difference between when you have like a group of people telling a story and then when you've got like a story that is written where you can write the roles for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that sense is kind of an interesting thing to think about where like yeah, it's like it's harder to get away with that necessarily in like a story that everybody's kind of creating as they're going because yeah,
Yeah.
like why
Well, and nobody's supposed to be the main character in a TTRPG either.
yeah, I mean yeah, exactly, that's also true, but like
True.
yeah, like nobody's supposed to be the main character and like but also like why should we implicitly trust this particular character's decisions about
Yeah,
every
and like,
like
and every time.
yeah.
Um, I liked
Ooh.
that the ship later on came back faster and fancier and with more powerful weapons, like just out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
it
here's a
was
much scarier ship.
it was
Did that
something
work?
like it was something like almost it was like 40 gigawatts of laser or something, and they're like, we could take this all day. And then it comes back, and it's like, I think I even have a tweet with the number in it. It's like, it's ridiculous, like 40,000 gigawatts or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and doesn't like Picard or Riker say something like, and it looks it's gotten a lot meaner or something like that?
Oh, yeah, he says,
Yeah.
is it just me or did it get meaner? Yeah, I actually didn't put that together that the ship was changing for a while. And there, just because, like, we saw it fairly quickly. But yeah, it was interesting. I also kind of wrote that off as like a Riker being, because that's kind of his wheelhouse of glibness. Yeah, the glib is the correct
Mm-hmm.
word. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
it's great.
actually didn't catch on until the second ship showed up.
There you go. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that's about how long it
yeah.
took me too.
I guess I could admit it to all of Twitch, but not to
There we
Twitter.
go. Not them. They're too judgy over there, but this is just a big
Well, they are.
snuggle party. I mean, that's true. I do love they give this like nice little quick zoom to Riker
Mm-hmm.
with his steel jaw when he says this one gets away when they let the ship go the first time and head back. That was I liked it. um yeah, starting to think this is where I was starting to think Kevin was the problem, but like because the
And you were
lady
right.
was I was right, but the lady was like, she was being so not over the top, but she seemed to still be like so. It seemed like a hiding in plain sight thing to
Yeah,
me.
she seemed to be so normal. Like
Yeah, you
like,
are.
oh, come in for
Yeah,
tea.
my husband's moody, so I'm going to be very, very normal. Yeah. I also like. Speaking of the tea, when Worf is asked if he likes it, and he's just like, "Good tea, nice house." I'm like, that. Worf and I are the same person when we're like in a awkward
Head of
situation
security.
we don't want to be in.
This is not what I signed up.
I'd say another thing that distracted from figuring this out sooner was that we've already been presented several times with the artificial environment on the barren planet for exterior reasons. We haven't seen the interior one yet. So
True.
I think this is the first one in 3 seasons where we've encountered a small band of survivors on a planet.
Yeah, that's very
where
true.
yeah, and this is the first time they were there. They put themselves there and they stayed there, and not with grit.
Yeah, not with grit, with opulence and
Yep.
Alexa playing their favorite song as they waltz. That just this episode when they're first of all their waltzing seemed very aggressive. I mean, I'm not a dancer. I don't know.
They were practically poking.
Yeah. They were practically poking, indeed. I can't top that. I'm just gonna leave it there. That's fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I, I mean, like, it's one of the things I like about this episode is that, like, other than the fact that there's this green patch on this completely blasted planet, like, they, there's like no other real clues that, like, this is all a recreation and in a sense is like a fabrication or illusion, right? Like, it's not like, I mean, everything seems very real.
For sure. Like,
so, yeah,
like
like,
Picard at one point and says, he at one point in time even says, as he, like, on the shoulder, like, you know, a more captainly Picard thing, but like pokes, for lack of a better term, taps, I guess, like on their shoulder, so he's able to. And you know, they were all in the house, and Worf enjoyed the tea, so I guess. Well, yeah. So all of that was Matt. Now I'm wondering if did I miss something? Like he actually wills matter into.
I mean, he seems to.
To
Yeah,
existence.
no, because the woman or something doesn't come up as weird on
Yeah,
Crusher's scan.
Scanned as a.
So he's actually and their ship really was damaged.
Yeah, true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just
no,
able
I mean,
to create really, really fast.
and like, I think that was one of the reasons why, like, he, like, right, like that they had. I mean, it's sure it's not going to be the last time that Crusher scanned somebody without their permission, but
True.
like, one of the reasons why they had it was, again, to like be like, nope, not an illusion. You thought you were onto us, audience, but you weren't.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, that's good. I do. Let's see.
We should probably get to the genocide bit.
Yeah, we should probably get to the
probably get to the genocide. We
and
should.
The whole, I mean, the whole thing in general, because like this is like, I feel like it's a weird episode to say that I like, but I do. I think this episode does bring up a lot of sort of classic sci-fi things that I find, or like, that I find very interesting to think about, or not think about, but like, I don't know. It posits a lot of interesting questions, but yeah,
I agree. It takes a sudden heavier turn. I mean,
it really does.
Yeah. Because fucking Kevin, man. Kevin's like,
and his name is Kevin.
I know. I love that. His wife's got like some sort of like future-y name, and Kevin.
Her name's Rashawn. His name is Kevin.
Yeah. That's the thing I think that makes the Kevin really stand out. Is like, well, she's got kind of a future-y.
Yeah, if her name was like Susan or something, you wouldn't have thought twice about Kevin. Yes. So Kevin did a genocide. Which sounds like a "It's Always Sunny" title or something. Like Kevin does a genocide.
And like, another thing that I was talking about with my roommate is like, to me it's unclear that, like, it's not just it sort of seems like he didn't just kill all of them, but it seems like he may have like just erased them from history, because like, it just seems weird to me that, like, if there was
Starfleet didn't recognize anything,
recognize apparently a very hostile group that apparently, you know, is in this area,
has the means to destroy a planet, sort of
and
thing,
is near enough to have reached one of their colonies. You know, like, it seems weird that they have never heard of them at all, and so it's like, did Kevin just like erase them from all existence, period? Like they just never existed or something. I don't know. It just was.
And possibly fairly recently too.
Yeah.
Because they
were coming to investigate or check in or something. I forget exactly. No,
it was a distress beacon.
the very serious VO.
And it wasn't a long-lived distress beacon. It was like, this just happened.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's possible Starfleet did know something about them.
Did and then does not, because they never existed. That's also very. it's very terrifying that he just did it too. Because I mean, not just like the sheer raw power of it, but like he doing it in doing a genocide, just to keep it a little light, is obviously horrific on its own, but that he could do it with like just a thought at any time. And like Picard says, like, when people express concern, he was like, if he wanted us dead, we'd be dead. So
well, and that was another thing that I wasn't sure how to interpret. Like, it wasn't like I feel like there's something that's on the back of my brain of like a very parallel thing, where it's like, for someone, like, for a being that is as powerful as this being appears maybe is, it's not so much even that like he made a concerted effort. It was just like a stray thought left, like formed in his brain, and then this thing happened. Like I don't even know like how, you know what I mean, like how like active.
And how could he do all that and not protect the planet? But it wouldn't be much of a story if he just
he had hope that they were going to survive the attack and come together.
Well, it sounds like he tried to lure them away and scare with some of the same tricks that he played on the Enterprise. Like,
because he said it made him angrier.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, I'm really frustrated that they never, in the remaining 2 minutes of the show, did not ask him if he was aware of the Q.
Yeah.
But like, it was like, I know that Natalie made that comment about like, we have laws against genocide. Like, how can Starfleet not have laws against genocide? And I don't know if like the point partly was just like, how do you bring someone like that?
For sure, but
yeah.
And you should definitely, like, I don't think Starfleet needs to like fling itself at this man until he decides to like just erase Earth and humans from existence. But I guess I liked this episode overall. I think the problem I have with it is that it seems to end in a very un-Starfleet way.
Yeah.
I was talking to my roommate. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, sorry. I was talking to my roommate that it would have been interesting. I think, like now when things like restorative justice and stuff are more something that we think about, like, it would be interesting to see like a companion where we see like Kevin have to like take that kind of road, or what that would even, I don't even know how, like, what that would look like, or something like would be.
If even just a thought he could do that, then what's to stop him from, bringing them back too at the same time? Or like maybe not all of them back, like maybe Starfleet's like, it's cool if you like don't bring back the ones on the ship that killed everybody. Of course, then I guess what's stopping him? I guess it would be an illusion forever, so it wouldn't matter, and he'd have to keep it up.
Well, and the other thing, sorry,
he doesn't particularly alter reality. That's all I had.
The other thing that I think is like one of the things that really interests me about this episode, but interests me about the Odyssey in general, it is like when you have like a sort of a being that's like has godlike powers, is the way in which the amount of power they have ultimately limits what they can actually do, because it's so hard for them to work on any scale that isn't like massive in some ways.
Yeah,
sure.
And I feel like that is part of that. I kind of like how this episode kind of gets at that, where he's like, I have this moral code that I don't involve myself because like, and then he sort of points around like, this is what can happen when I cut loose, like I can't, like, I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, not to plug other people's Twitch channels or anything like that, but it is kind of one of the things that I thought was interesting that I would have been interested to spend more time on in the first couple of seasons of like Once Upon a Leap, where like, you know, your character's mother like essentially punishes an entire kingdom for this one mistake, you know, like that's a very particular person made.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also yeah. I mean, we don't need to get into that. You're not. I'd say anyway. Go ahead.
But like the idea that like when you have like that kind of power, like it's sometimes hard to act in a way like in some ways like it can be hard to be helpful.
No, I gotcha. Yeah, when you're used to dealing with like, you know, just the being scale is so different, like than we're accustomed to. I get what you're saying. I guess I can't actually help weed out the statement better. But I think I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And like like I kind of feel like part of this episode is because I feel like at the very beginning they have some comment about like it seemed like a nuclear attack like had happened to this planet, like that had been, and I feel like that maybe is part of what this episode is about, is like, you know, like what happens when you have that kind of like
That's
the kind
a
of
good
power
point.
that human beings have now,
Yeah.
like where you can just obliterate
The entire
whole planet.
with one, apparently one ship. Yeah. No, that's good. Do we have anything to add on to this one before we move on over?
This cheerful, yeah, there's some cheerful.
I mean, the two are somewhat related because we deal with like the Enterprise in episode 3, the survivors come across a creature who is, you know, essentially a god and has godlike powers. And in episode 4, who watches the Watchers, Starfleet, particularly Picard, is confused for a god and has to convince the people that he isn't, which obviously, you know, he can't. Picard can't just do a genocide with his thoughts. And
Yeah,
I mean, we'll get into it. I do, spoiler alert, at the end come to the conclusion that I might love this episode because it's kind of some of my favorite things that Star Trek in particular is very well set up to explore, in my humble little opinion. I do wonder, because there's at the beginning of this episode where they're trying to get to the duck blind, which I understand the reference works. I don't know. It sort of bothered me. I couldn't tell you why. I don't have a reason. It just sort of bothered me that they referred to it as the duck blind.
I mean, because it makes humanoid sentient creatures seem like animals.
Yes.
Like,
okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's
like it's
that's the point of
one
it.
of the things that makes me very uncomfortable in this episode.
Yeah. But regardless, they're on their way there, and the suggestions made, I think, by Wesley, to that if they go up to, you know, warp 7, that they'll get there in 20 minutes. And Picard says, "Yeah, that's great. Let's do that." Like, why aren't, if you're in transit in a Starfleet vessel, why aren't they going flat out? Why aren't they, you know?
I don't know if their sensors work as well.
That could be
Yeah.
like, I'm sure there could be a plethora of reasons why. It's never been explained. The thing I thought of is like less fuel efficient.
It's not explained at all, and you have to come up with your own answer.
I mean, that's
I mean,
fine.
I've watched a lot of Star Trek. They never explain.
Although later on they do find out that there's something very problematic about going above a certain warp.
Okay, that's interesting.
Later on, but
I know that episode. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like, it doesn't explain like why now they don't.
Yeah.
Later on, they kind of do invent a reason. But
that's good. Yeah. So
but yeah, like it is, like it's sort of like, yeah, because it's not like you imagine they have the. I mean, like you can understand like maybe if it was like starships that were on like normal routes or something like that, where like for the same reason that you can't have like airplanes and cars going at max
yeah,
speed.
I mean, yeah, to for traffic control, it would make sense to me too. Like,
But
you
when
know,
you've got a
yeah,
when you've got a starship like the Enterprise that's probably going off to places that, you know, like traffic is not really an issue. Like it seems like
it's a grain of sand on an entire beach. It's not
yeah.
running into anything.
um. So yes, so they're racing towards this observation post. There we go. Um, they're on the way to this observation post that's losing power. I think is what, like, they're running out of fuel to power the not cloaking,
The
but
illusion maker.
The illusion maker. The illusion maker 5000 is running out of battery. And they have to get there. They get there as well as they're watching on the big screen. There's like the explosion and the side of the mountain opens up, and when they can see that it's not just a cliff face, they being the Mintalkins. I'm getting better at making sure I catch the names of stuff. Trying. Because I was either going to call them not Romulans or Mandy Patinkins. If I forgot Mintalkins. So yes, they are a well, first of all, their fashion is also very nice. I like their, like, it's like hobbits in space, I guess. And it's not even really that spacey of a look, really. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked.
Sci-fi's big on vests, oversized vests. I like them.
Yes, which I get.
It's the cloak of sci-fi.
It is the cloak of sci-fi. That's very true.
I really thought about it that way. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Oh yeah. So it's a father-daughter team, apparently. Apparently, this father-daughter team, and they're going. The daughter's looking to collect some important to her, and I would imagine like for crops and stuff. So, but important data from a sundial, I was gathering, sort of thing. And they see the hole in. Her father climbs up, is shocked by it because the it's not just running out of fuel. It's like there was an explosion, something catastrophic happened, and so there's these little lightning strikes that are pretty well done, I think. Again, with the caveat of the period of time we're talking about for the production. And he ends up falling very far off a cliff. And Dr. Crusher makes the decision to bring him back. He's already seen... As the reason, backtracking just for a second, one of the reasons why I love this episode is because it's very much... It's in the wheelhouse of the Prime Directive and how the Prime Directive... Not that I think anybody in this episode is trying to do so, but the Prime Directive could very much be used for evil. It's not an argument against it. Most laws can be used for evil in the right situation. But in particular with the Prime Directive being designed to stop the evil things from happening, I love this exploration of it. I've been talking a lot. Do either of you have thoughts to add on to this one here, or moving on through the episode? The Dr. Crusher deciding to bring the man on board.
Well, it was a big argument, yeah. Like,
yeah,
I was on both sides of it, like,
for sure.
Yeah, like, and then they get into actually, I think he actually asks her, like, can't you use Pulaski's method?
Yes, she's like, yes, I'm
She's
familiar
just
with
indignant.
Dr. Pulaski. Yeah, I'm familiar with her method and the recipe for her fucking soup.
You like her better than me, don't you?
Yeah. Do you want her soup back? You son of a bitch. You always did like him curly haired and kind of
Oh, is that why
bigoted.
she had curly hair in the first 2 episodes?
I don't know. Maybe I just Dr. Pulaski had that very late 80s perm thing going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did like the argument in Sick Bay about
For
that,
sure.
like what they were going to do with him, if they're going to wipe his mind.
And
Like-
seeing Picard.
Speaking of medical procedures that
We still don't like the mind wipe.
Yeah, don't like the
No.
mind wipe.
No. Do not like them.
Like, I think these mind wipe things, I think
I think it's a very convenient thing they did for one story, and then in this episode, it seems like
Which is maybe why they didn't have it work. Like it's
yeah.
I think they give people too much credit for having coherent memories.
Yes.
It makes sense
That
once
too.
you've been
Yeah.
gaslighted into thinking they're not real.
Yeah.
They could easily just gaslight people, which is a little bit better than memory wiping. A little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't
Like we're measuring in microns now, though.
Yes. But still,
I would
there are
just-
other solutions than potentially damaging their brain.
For
You
sure.
could just tell
No,
them it's a dream, or
yeah,
that
I'm on
like
bo-
they
I'm
had a
on
mental
board.
health crisis.
Given if it's one of the two options, the less.
I would say that speaking of like your thing about like how people's memories work, because like that's the other thing that like I just don't buy that you can detach someone's memories that way and just like I'm gonna wipe these memories. Like that just it seems like such a ridiculous
Far too interwoven.
like a ridiculous way. But what I was gonna say is that like that's part of the other reason why I'll be honest, I don't really like this episode.
Oh, really?
Is because the way they depict how religion develops is so cartoony. I felt like I was in a Simpsons episode.
I was on board with it because I dislike religion.
And
So
I just was like, I was just like, I don't. It kind of made a lot of the Prime Directive stuff just seem like I don't. Like it just seemed like it was built around such a made up problem that I couldn't really get into it, I guess.
I mean this is the most I've gotten. I'm regardless of my personal beliefs, I am left believing watching this episode that if Starfleet isn't as a whole an atheist organization.
Oh,
it's
it
like,
is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is that this very much comes out of Gene Roddenberry. Very much, this comes out of like a
so that makes sense because
late
there
20th
are
century sort of atheist viewpoint, which is
it can be more
problematic in its own
insufferable.
ways.
Yeah, it can be equally to more insufferable than religious people, and I say that as a not very religious person. So yeah, I mean there is that. I guess my bias carrying me through on in this episode, but it is very. It doesn't make it okay, even though
I would say like I'm in the
liked
looking through what people say about this episode. Like this one usually rates really highly, so I feel like I'm
being contrarian.
Sure.
I don't know if I'd say I'm being contrarian. I would
mhm.
say that I'm just approaching it with a very different lens, I think. Just as someone
That's
who
fair.
has studied a lot of
I'm not sure there is a sensitive way to deal with this in 45 minutes.
yeah.
That's also true.
Yeah, like even in an entire movie showing the development of a religion without jumping generations at a time would be really difficult, I think. You can't do it in an afternoon. But I like the premise of this. But like maybe a movie
Or a 2-part.
give some of those
Episode
people
would
time
have
to
been
shave
good,
their
too.
heads.
Yeah, and hand out Bibles at the travel hub.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is part of the issue that it really, like, the way this episode works is it really requires religion to be synonymous with a very particular kind of Christianity, and I think that's part of
That's an excellent point.
what bothers me about it.
Yeah.
Very prophets in the desert sort of.
Yeah.
It wasn't very prophets in the desert religion they were doing.
That's an excellent point. And you're kind of I think it's always going to be one of my favorite episodes just because of the exploration of the Prime Directive that it delves into, but that is very much an excellent point that takes a little bit of the shine of the episode off for me. Yeah, that's why I love doing this show. And talking about stuff in general. So if we can circle back, but to move on at least just for a little bit, because there's a bit more episode to talk about here. I love Riker having to translate the little noises Troy has to make to respond to Data, because
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, it's precious and cute, and I love it.
There was the third question that when he was the third question that he asked, and like Troy has to clear her throat and then makes a noise, and I'm like, no, you're gonna mess up the Data's really gonna have no idea what you're saying now.
Oh Lord. That's funny.
Well, she added a third word in, which was basically like, just back the fuck off. I'm gonna get caught. But Data wouldn't be able to interpret that.
Yeah, no, it was just funny to have Data try to filter it.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, now you've made it more complicated.
I do also love we've seen this before numerous times. Riker before at the transporter con, but when Picard decides to bring on the leader lady, he tells the person at the transporter controls, like, I'll do this. Like, I very much like and respect that both Picard and Riker, if they decide to do something that does or they view as breaking or bending the rules, like, they make sure they're the ones that press the button, and I really appreciate that out of both of them.
I do really find the calling him the Picard really made me laugh every single time.
The Picard.
Every single time.
Is pretty delightful.
But how do we know what the Picard wants?
Yes. I do like I really like until Robin tears it apart. Potentially. I really like the interaction with Picard and the leader lady to understanding the situation. I think it really made me think about how I would, if somebody was confusing me for a god, like, how do you go about dissuading somebody of that notion?
I think that made sense. Like I didn't really have a problem with that. It's hard for me to, I think, really quite explain what it was. Just it's more some of the stuff on the ground where I felt like I was watching a Simpsons episode.
No, and it's very broad brush.
Where it's like they went from organized society to violent mob in less than 12 seconds. That's a new record. I like the interaction on the ship, and I also sort of like the anthropologist who's like, well, it's all fucked up now, so who cares what you do.
That reminds me, I actually side with that scientist guy over Picard in their conversation, where he's like, look,
I agree.
Shit's already fucked up, let's save Palmer. I was very much on the side of just fucking saving Palmer at that point.
And that's why I'm glad that Picard actually just had I actually agree with Picard about having Nouriel, I think was her name. Does that sound right?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Having her come up I was like, at this point, this seems by far the most reasonable way to handle the situation at this point.
Yes.
I don't really know what else you do.
Yeah. No, you talk to the influencer.
For sure.
But also just come clean and be like, hey, this is all just super advanced technology,
Yeah.
And we can't give it to you, but someday you'll probably get there.
Not you though.
Yeah.
Not you though.
Not you. Technology takes a lot longer to spread than religion. That was a joke based off of Robin's point that it happens kind of cartoonishly fast. I think this episode kind of confuses me too on like what medicine can and can't do. Of course, I also don't really know the affliction of the person that died.
Yeah.
And obviously they had to die to show the leader
That
lady.
people- yeah.
Yeah, that they can't.
I kind of wanted Billy Crystal to show up and say, what was the first guy's, the father, the guy who dies and causes all the trouble in the first place. I wanted him to be like, see, he was mostly dead. He wasn't dead. He was just mostly dead.
That would be pretty great. I also want to make sure we're coming up on the hour mark, but I do want to make sure we talk about Picard taking a frickin' arrow.
Yeah,
Which
that
is
was
just-
unexpected. I was surprised.
Yeah, it's baller as hell. Like I didn't think he'd actually get shot, but like he's like, he essentially
he
put
already-
himself up for a Salem witch trial. Really, I mean,
we had a whole episode about getting shot with things and the lasting consequences.
and it was
He's just
and
gonna
it was
do it
over by
again?
his heart too.
Yeah,
It's like,
you're just gonna go through this again, Picard? Is this
Yeah.
gonna be your whole life? Getting shot in the chest
But it
and
was
having your heart replaced?
yeah, it was pretty dope as hell though. That he was like,
Yeah.
look, if the only way for me to solve this is for you to shoot me with an arrow, I guess that's what I'm doing today. Like, damn, dude. All right. How do you hide that big swinging thing in your onesie, sir? That's what I want to know. Yes.
I also kind of like I feel like there was another reference to it later where OG, the daughter, like collecting the data from the sundial comes up again, and I just felt like I just love this idea of this character who is like just like, all I wanted to do was collect some data from this sundial.
It's for a very important school project.
Very important school project.
I do like that her need to get that information is why they discover Riker absconding with Palmer in the first place.
Oh, that's right. That's what it is. Yeah. They're like, oh, gonna finish it.
And
now.
then watching Riker make his escape, fireman carrying Palmer while the Mintalkan guy with the bow and arrow like chases him. It was fucking hilarious to me. I mean, it was well done. I thought it was hilarious, but I also had tension. And it like, is Riker gonna be able to get away because they wanted to beam him and Palmer up, so Palmer could get the medical attention, but they wanted to do it away from everybody. So that's why they were doing I don't know. It was great, and then they like disappeared just in time, of course, for the guy to like walk by where they were. Although I puckered up a little bit, I will admit, because there was still like the little blue shimmer when the dude walked away, and I was like, oh no, he's gonna see it and be like, they got Jesused up or something, you know. the Picard sent his blue traveling light down to
You know what it actually is about, I think, this episode? Like, I think I would have liked it a lot more if they had not... Because the part that was, like, I think the most, in some ways, like, affecting to me was, like, at the end when both parts, like, when Nuriel's like, hey, there are these 6 people, can you bring them back to life? Or, like, at the end with the guy who's like, can you bring my wife back? You know, like... And I think if they had maybe focused more on that and less on look at these crazy witch burnings they're doing, I think I would have liked the episode a little bit more.
No, I can see that. Yeah, that would have drifted it away from the issues you mentioned having for sure.
But yeah, the other thing I thought I wanted to know more about, weirdly, was that like Riker and Troy, they just come up as like traders from some other village, and I was like, I kind of wanted to know like how, like, because so often I feel like on Star Trek, right, like when we encounter these worlds, it's like there's like one village
Yeah.
on this entire planet, but like on this planet apparently like that's not the case, and I kind of wanted to know more about like what are other Matakan villages like? Are they like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this
That'd
is
be
just a
very
village
interesting.
that they happen to have an observation station at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting and kind of made me like, I
Yeah.
liked that potential world building of it, I guess, for lack
Yep.
of a better way of putting it.
Yeah,
But
that'd be interesting. For sure.
Of course, you have neighbors. Like a village is only like 10 families, maybe.
yeah.
Like
For sure.
you've got to have other like somebody's gonna get pissed at their cousin and head out.
And there's enough people where
to the
they
next-
didn't. Not only is there another settlement, there's also enough people in at least that other settlement, if not more settlements, that they don't they're not like, oh, you aren't from the over the ridge Smiths, like who
yeah.
usually bring their cloth. Like there was none of that. So there's got to be more going on the surface, but I don't think we'll ever know. And that we are at an hour and 2 minutes, which is horrifying. Not really.
Okay.
It's fine. But we are going to
Think
wrap
so
it up
now.
here. But if either of you have a final point you wish to make, we can certainly take the time for that. All right. Well, that will do it for this week's Transporter Room 3. Next week, we'll be moving right along and talking about episodes 5 and 6. And we hope to see you there. I am Natalie, also known as Dark Aardvark. You can find me on Twitter at Dark_Aardvark. I am joined by Hope, who you can find on Twitter at HopeTracy71, and by Robin, who you can find on Twitter at KaikaC. But we hope we see you next week. Okay, bye.